Hey, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, folks. It is the Gorilla, the thriller like no other, not from Manila, with the cowboy who's not a boy toy. He is the man working the airwaves with the master plan. And if you don't know, you better ask somebody. RogueNews.com, ESW, Exit Strategy World. And check us out. Follow us on X at Rogue News ESW, Rogue News ESW. And with that being said, also check out our free algorithm that our paid sponsor, AlgoFactory.tech, is putting out there. AlgoFactory.tech. Free algorithms for you to use and try and learn how to trade like a hedge fund pro. Profit from the chaos. Whether the market's up or down, learn how to profit from it. With that being said, Cowboy, what's going on, brother?
Doing good, profiting from chaos as we speak.
That's all we can
How
do.
you doing, brother?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. I'm hanging in there. I can't complain. You know, it's funny. You give me a little link here.
Oh, did you like?
Dude, play that. What is this about? Put it up.
Oh, dude, this is great.
Yeah.
Let me grab it. Yeah, we'll start the show off with a little bit of comedy here. Give me one moment. Let's see here. We'll do a little copy, a little bit of copy, a little bit of paste. Give me one moment. Okay. And we will make sure that we have sound because that always is the bugaboo. And no, bugaboo is not a racist term. I'll have to have a story around that for later. I had somebody who thought that was racist. It's like, nah, bro. Okay. This is it. Let's make this official. You ready to go, sir?
Yeah, go ahead, man. Play
In
it.
2 years, I'm going to lose my housing. All because the guidelines for Section 8 have changed since you know who got into office. I have to depend on the government to help pave my way.
She got some lungs on her too.
Good fucking job.
All right, that's enough. It just keeps going. It's like, pay for your own shit.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Exactly.
Yes, sir. Lies, more lies in the American economy. You had some cool stuff to talk about today, right?
Yeah, we do. And, you know, we've been dispelling the narrative and the fantasy that's been that has everybody in a stupor and incapable of thinking rationally for the last several decades. And we are one of the original OGs of dispelling that narrative. In fact, probably one of the handful of OGs. You can count those on one hand. We're not conspirators. We're not, thinking that the elites are so damn elite that they're incomprehensible with your own brain. Look, man, there's nothing new under the sun. And one of the things that people need to understand is that you get this in your head. The last 300 years of human history that you've been told is a complete fabricated lie. We'll start there. And so since we've been unveiling the bullshit that everybody's under, the stupor, the glamour that everybody thinks is real, it hasn't been easy for us. We are shadow banned. We are constantly, our views are squelched. I've seen the real numbers of what's actually is viewed versus what we're shown to be viewed, right? A lot of people who've subscribed or automatically taken off. A lot of stuff, man. A lot of stuff to suppress us here on Rogue. And one of the things I want to mention is that the world is fast moving, right? And I want to kind of set this talking point for today. The talking point is, a lot of things have changed. Technology, fintech, decentralization, blockchain. These are just catchwords. Decentralization doesn't mean you're decentralized from the elites. You're insane out of your brain if you think that they're going to let you live a life without their control. You're out of your mind. But because things have changed so much, the question becomes, as complexity grows within the economy, as complexity grows with global trade and with technology and with new advancements, the question becomes, what the hell does the Fed do? Right? Does the central banking concept work? And historically, it's never worked. Fiat currencies never worked. Central banking never worked. Central banking concept is the ultimate, the penultimate wealth extraction scheme created by some very nefarious people. There are people that have worked for the Fed, like, I never seen that, Had Daniel D. Martino Booth, former Dallas Fed person. I forgot what she did over there. Smart lady. And she's like, no, there's, these are just misguided people. No, these are not misguided people. At some level, yeah, they're misguided. But at higher levels that are above Jerome Powell, who's just a front man, it's very nefarious. It's very evil. Its only purpose is wealth extraction. Now, Cowboy, I can't show you a bird or an airplane and say, you know what, the design of this vehicle is to fly. And you're telling me that, or I say, or you say to me, hey man, look, this is an airplane. It's designed to fly. And I'm telling you, no. The airplane is not designed to fly. It's designed to actually just, float on water and go underwater. You'd think I'm a maniac. Likewise, central banking by its design is explicitly created for one purpose and one purpose only. And that purpose is a complete anathema and is a complete dichotomy to what the masses want, to what the people want, and what the government of the supposed people want. And that is wealth extraction. It serves nothing more than wealth extraction. If it quacks like a duck, if it walks like a duck, then it's a duck. Great article here. Central banks do not prevent financial crisis. This is from Mises.org, Daniel Akale. And, I don't agree with everything that Mises puts out there. But here's some great point.
I actually have I have a family member who donates a lot of money to Mises. So like you said, I think it's a good thing that you said right there that people need to hear. I just need to point out, like, I don't agree with everything they say.
Yeah.
But there are things that are worth reading. Go ahead, V.
Correct. Easing and tightening decisions move all assets from bonds to private equity. Their role is supposed to be to control inflation, provide price stability, ensure normal market functions. However, there is little evidence of any success in achieving their goals. Correct. This is what they say about every central bank. Oh, it's there to, provide price stability, ensure normal market functions, no. Whatever they do, the purpose of the central bank is to create not wealth, but bubbles. The purpose of the central bank is to create bubbles. That's what they're supposed to do. In the era of central bank dominance has been characterized by boom and bust cycles. Correct. Boom and bust cycles of what? What are they booming and what are they busting? Bubbles. And then another bubble is blown, which is bigger than the other bubble. And with every successive implosion or explosion of the bubble, regulations are never like ratcheted up. They're always eased. Does regulation ease after a bubble is burst, or does it increase? It's always eased. Is competition always done away with? And bubbles are a great way. When you implode the bubble, you eliminate your competition. When you inflate the bubble, you eliminate, and when you explode it, right, when you deflate it, you eliminate your competition and you create consolidation. So if you're easing regulations where you make theft and manipulation rampant, where you feed the fire economy, and then you, in turn, eliminates the competition, which then in turn creates centralization of power. Then the central bank is doing what it's supposed to do, which is wealth extraction. Never wealth creation. The wealth creation that you think that you're enjoying, folks, for the first time listeners here, that you think that you're enjoying is not real wealth. It's phantom wealth effect. It's all based on credit and debit. It's a debt-based system. Let me ask you a simple question. How is true, real, material wealth created in a debt-based system? You can't. This is why you don't own anything. Take a step back. There's probably some guys listening to this. They're multimillionaires. I've consulted with billionaires, and they're like, well, I've created wealth. I have assets. Who owns those assets? I own property. Stop paying the tax. You find out who owns what real quick. You never could own anything. And when you can't own anything, whether you're a millionaire or even a billionaire, and you cannot really, truly own anything, and it's those who have the power of the lever of control, those are the guys that own everything. And then everything else, whether it's Jeff Bezos' stock options and this, that, and the other, when you look at every billionaire, stock options, and they avoid the paying income tax because they take a loan on their against their stock shares and this, that, and the other, and we all know all this stuff. We've heard of it before. What you have is a rentier economy, a rent-seeking economy. Everybody's living off of dividends on private equity, on the stock market, on the bond market. That's where our 1% makes the majority of their wealth. It's not like how it was 100 years ago. It's not, we don't have captains of industry anymore. We have paper billionaires who help create the narrative of wealth. Folks, let me explain something to you. Who do you think is really wealthy here? The guy who owns Rosneft, the CEO of Rosneft, or Mark Zuckerberg? Who do you think is really wealthy here? Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos or Mohammed bin Salman? Who do you think is really wealthy? Those who actually own outright the assets that they claim. The era of central bank dominance has been characterized by boom and bust cycles, financial crisis, policy incentives, increased government spending and debt, and persistent inflation. If central banking works, folks, why has your currency lost 98 to 99% of its value since the advent of the American Central Bank, which is the Federal Reserve? Why has it done that? If it is about ensuring purchasing power, let me explain something to you guys. When a wealth extraction scheme is in effect, your currency loses purchasing power. I'll repeat that again. When a wealth extraction scheme is in effect, your currency loses purchasing power. And that's exactly what you're seeing. Recently developed economies and central banks have taken an increasingly interventionist role. Nevertheless, as history and current events continually show, central banks have not prevented financial crises. They are the very progenitors, the very catalyst of the financial crisis itself. The frequency and severity of these crises have fluctuated, but have not declined since central banks became the leading figure in financial market regulation and monetary interventions. Instead, central banking has introduced new fragilities, changed the nature, but not the recurrence of financial turmoil. Empirical evidence dispels the myth that central banks ended the era of frequent financial crisis, and it's absolute bullshit. Regardless of central banking oversight, a credit boom preceded one of three banking crises. Who created these credit booms? Credit banks, central banks, through the manipulation of what? Interest rates. According to Levin and Valencia's comprehensive database, there were 147, count that, folks, 147 banking crises between 1970 and 2011 alone. 147. Damn, cowboy, our central banking really does work.
Well, it works for them.
Exactly. This is the parasite. I don't want to hear about freedom. I don't want to hear about anybody yelling about Jeffrey Epstein lists. I don't want to hear shit about we're going to make America great again and bring back manufacturing, this, that, and the other, until you deal with the central banking issue and fiat currency. Until those two things are dealt with, until that cancer is excised from the American body and economic politics, we are never and never will be free. What was that quote by Thomas Jefferson, man?
It's a banana republic.
No, that's Benjamin Franklin, bro.
Oh, okay.
Thomas Jefferson banking quote, right? I'm going to pull that up right now. Jefferson banking quote. And I know it, I know it paraphrased, but this is what he said. Okay. He said this: if the American people ever allow private banks to control the issuance of currency, first by inflation, then by deflation, the banks and the corporations that will grow up around them will deprive the people of all property until their children wake up homeless on the continent their fathers conquered. I believe that banking institutions are more dangerous to our liberties than standing armies. The issuing power should be taken from the banks and restored to the people to whom it properly belongs. God, man, our founding fathers were so brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
Well, I'd say go back and watch Thursday's show with Ian Burlingame. Those are the financialists that that Jefferson is talking about.
Correct. This is an old power struggle, folks. It's an old power struggle. According to Reinhardt and Rogoff's work, the rate of crisis has not dramatically changed with central banking. Instead, the forms of crisis has evolved. Twin crises, banking and currency, remain common. And the severity measured in output loss and fiscal costs has often increased, especially as financial institutions and governments grew intertwined with monetary authorities. The great financial crisis of 2008, the Eurozone sovereign debt crisis, and the 2021-2022 inflationary burst rank among the events of the highest costs in history, contradicting the view that central banks have neutralized the risks or costliness of crisis. Folks, let me explain something to you. Central banking is the chemotherapy that kills the patient. Chemotherapy is a dangerous World War I weapon based off of mustard gas. Chemotherapy is known to cause cancer amongst the pharmacists and pharmaceutical people that mix the chemicals to create this weaponized concoction that the American cancer industry, and it's an industry, 500 billion something a year, cancer, I don't even know how many trillions. But anyway, right? They think it's good, and what does it do? It kills you, but it enriches the medical system. Chemotherapy is a killer, but it enriches the medical establishment. I remember doing my clinical practice at Westchester Medical Center. And I remember doing a stint in oncology where we're tracking the nutritional intake of patients. This is when I was in college. And I remember doctors saying, "Hey, you know what? Yeah, we cured we got rid of the tumor, but the patient's dead. Well, at least we got rid of the tumor." I remember that. I'm paraphrasing here, but the just is in the crux of what I'm saying is these two oncologists who was creating or treating, excuse me, a patient dying of cancer, and then telling to each other, "Hey, you know what? This guy's dead, but at least we got rid of the cancer." I want you to think about how screwball of an idea that is, how stupid of a fact that is, how detached from reality these two quote unquote educated fucking doctor meatheads are. The patient's dead, but we got rid of the cancer. That's what central banking is. Chemotherapy creates all sorts of side effects and problems. It makes you 10 times worse. It kills you quicker. But it enriches and feeds the medical industrial complex. It feeds big pharma.
Well, one thing that it's one of the few medications for which doctors actually get paid for prescribing.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Like
The great
massively paid.
Say again?
Like massively paid.
Massively
Like doctors make a ton of money from
Yeah.
that.
Oncologists make so much fucking money. It's ridiculous. You think they want to cure you? Velas has a great quote there. A patient cured is $1 lost. An old saying about the medical industry. 100%. Because the Rockefeller created medical industrial complex is intertwined with central banking. Folks, you got to understand, you know how many things die if you get rid of central banking? Big pharma goes away. The medical industrial complex goes away. Big food or big agro goes away. And of course, the military incompetent complex also goes away. All the bullshit goes away. Why? Because you take into effect truth. You're reinstilling truth within your country. It's insanity. And I love how they say this. Central banks act as a lender of last resort and regulators. Folks, do you know if there's a mortgage crisis that's so far widespread, if you look under every mortgage documentation that you sign, what does it say? If you ever read the real fine print, what does it say? It says that the Federal Reserve is the lender of last resort. If every single bank fails, the Federal Reserve is the lender of last resort. And that sounds heroic. That sounds, oh my God, that's great. We have some sort of social net. Folks, let me explain something. In the world of central banking, there are no safety nets. There's only consumption. That's why they need you to consume. And when you fail, they'll consume you. They're not the lender of last resort. With each crisis, the solution is always the same: larger and more aggressive asset purchase programs. What do you call asset purchase programs and negative interest rates? What do you call that?
I'd say modern monetary theory.
Yeah, what do you call all that?
Communism.
Wealth extraction. Wealth extraction. This means that the central bank has gradually moved from lenders of last resort to lenders of the first resort, a role that has amplified vulnerabilities. Due to the globalization of modern central banking and financial innovations, crisis tends to be larger in scale and more complex, impacting most nations. The profound involvement of central banks in markets means their policies, such as the emergency liquidity or asset purchases, mask systemic risk, leading to delayed but more dramatic failures. What is the percentage that the Bank of Japan owns in the Tokyo Stock Exchange? What is that percentage?
It was like 60, maybe more now.
Yeah, 64%.
What's effective nationalization?
Yeah. So when your central bank, in both in Japan and in Europe and in the UK and here in the US, when your central bank is the net purchaser of your equities, you don't have an economy. Well, your central bank is the very thing that is sustaining your stock market, your derivative market, your bond market, you don't have an economy. When it's your central bank that is securing mortgage-backed securities, interest rates dictate whether somebody can buy a home or a vehicle, you don't have a bloody economy. You have a joke. You have a virus. You have a fake parasite. I mean, you have a parasite faking as some sort of a real, valuable, synergistic organism. It is killing us. It is killing us. In many advanced economies, recent waves of crisis were triggered by debt accumulation and market distortions. And every time, folks, let me explain something to you. Every single time there's money printing involved, whether you want to call it quantitative easing, whether you want to call it TARP, whether you want to LARP about being so altruistic towards your own country, whatever the hell you want to do, however way you want to coin it, you are creating capital distortion and capital malformation every single time. The IMF and the World Bank both know that above half of the debt accumulation episodes in emerging markets since 1970 involved financial crises, and episodes associated with crises are marked by higher debt growth, weaker economic outputs, depleted reserves, regardless of central banking. Major crises in recent decades have highlighted that central banks do not prevent systemic disruption. Often, their interventions have only delayed the reckoning, because every time there's an intervention, there's a boom, and then a bust, and then a boom, and then a bust, until you blow the biggest asset bubble in human history, and then you pop it, and then next thing you know, poof, you have an impoverished country. It's incredible. Incredible to witness this. Fact upon fact, evidence upon evidence. It is clearly evident we don't need a central bank, folks. We don't need them. And we can't talk about being free until we deal with the Fed problem. You want to add anything to that, Cowboy?
Yeah, I think people should watch it's a movie. It's free on YouTube. It's called Princes of the Yen.
Oh, yeah.
And it basically is everything we just talked about, but in one microcosmic episode. And I'm not going to get too far into it, but it's really simple. The manufacturing economy in Japan did really well, late 70s, early 80s, early 90s. Some thought they would be taking over the world. And what they did in Japan was they started issuing loans to their citizens 3 times the amount that the citizens asked for. And when they created that debt, which that's what loans are debt. And so these people were buying homes and buying land and buying anything they could buy because values were going up, because money got cheap, because anybody could get a loan, and people were getting massive loans. All of a sudden, you've got $200,000-$300,000 you didn't think you were going to have. What are you going to do? Well, you're going to go buy stuff, and everybody else is trying to buy stuff, and now you have all this extra money chasing all the same things, and the values go up. And then after a long enough period of time, you have an overvaluation. And this is the capital malformation. This is the distortion. And then usually what happens later is there's a crash. Everything is corrected. And the whole time, what actually happened was the smart money, if you will, the people who run the game, they purchased all of those things before you did. When everybody else went and bought and hiked up the values, they were slowly offloading those at the top at inflated values. And then they took that money and they purchased hard assets, and they left you holding the bag. And then they crash everything while you're holding this fake paper and this debt and everything else. And you're holding just trash. And this is what has been going on forever. I would say it probably started in Amsterdam with tulip bulb mania. May have been the first kind of market-based experiment where this actually happened. So there's a lot there, But this is literally the financialist kill chain in action, right?
Yeah.
And the panic in 1907 happened this way. They just created a bunch of loans. People used those loans to buy stocks. And then when it was time to crash the market, they just called in the loans. Just did a margin call.
Mm-hmm.
So in order to keep those bets going in the market, people had to put in their own money, but they didn't have any money because they were leveraged because all the money they had was borrowed anyway. And they couldn't borrow any more money because now loans were being called in, not given out. So all they have to do is issue debt and play games with it. And everybody will see what they think is free money. And most people are stupid. And that's why people go to Vegas and gamble. It's the same thing. So it really is something that it's a simple cycle. And there's a reason that the usurists were outlawed in many, many cultures. But there is one particular culture that was allowed to continue to be the money changers and the lenders. I wonder what that culture was, even through the Middle Ages. Anyway, that's all I've got.
Switching gears, not to be worried. This is another reason why we need to get rid of central banking, because the distortions of everything. Bullshit economics creates bullshit companies that create bullshit valuations, that create bullshit billionaires, and has a bullshit narrative. And that's where we live, folks. That's where we live in this modern age. These are currently the world's most valuable unicorn companies. Another one by our boys over at Zero Hedge. I just want to just bring up to the top of the chart over here. Let's just, Cowboy, if you just blow that chart up. Yeah, there you go. You click on the link. It should blow it up. You're zooming in.
Yeah, it's not allowing me to zoom out.
All right, so do this. Let me share my screen.
I got it.
Okay, there it is. That's what I want you to do. Perfect. Good. All right, so look at all these companies. Okay, let's look at these companies. Do you think? Do you think for 1 second that these companies are actually worth what they're worth? Right? Do you think SpaceX is worth $350 billion? Yeah, we've seen the highlights of these arms capturing these rockets that are coming in and this, that, and the other. $350 billion? Maybe. But I don't think so. I think it should be worth less. But let's look at OpenAI. You think OpenAI, what does OpenAI make? How much money do they make per year? They're valued at $300 billion. Right? Databricks, really? Joule? Mm-hmm. Anthropic? Andural's worth $31 billion. Revolut, a bullshit copy and paste bank, which is a joke. They're worth $45 billion. This is the problem that we have here. Why is Apple worth almost $4 trillion? $1 trillion value. In NVIDIA? Really? America's most valuable company is a graphics card maker. Like, it's insane. It's insane. And this is the problem, folks. But all of this is all based on the fire economy. See, I don't care. Look, yeah, SpaceX is cool. Yeah, Anduril is cool. They make some cool little stuff and drones and this, that, and the other weapon system, blah, 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 blah. But do you know where every single one of them falls apart? None of these companies have any sort of industrial capacity. That's a mic drop moment right there. Let that sink in. None of these companies you guys are looking at have any sort of real major industrial capacity. They can't really ramp up. They're all built on very weak and fragile supply chains. So in reality, are they really worth that much? No. You think Lockheed or Raytheon or Boeing, Northrop Grumman, any one of these companies could ramp up to some major levels of industrial scale? No. No, not at all. So why are they worth this much? Simple. I've said it before and I've said it again. I've said it for years. Manufacturing in the United States is a cottage industry of what? Finance. The purpose of all these companies is not to actually create real, tangible things that alter the paradigm of how we're living and improve the lives of the average American. No. The purpose of these companies is to get sky-high stock valuations so they can be betted on in a stock exchange by private equity. That's what all this is about. All of this. I want you to think about that. If I could only perform at a certain level, where I run a company and I show profits of, let's say, $100 million, but some jackwad is like, no. This company that makes $100 million a year, no, dude, they're worth $1 trillion. You look at me like I'm a crackhead. How? How's that possible? What type of magic multiplier are they using to come up with these fictitious numbers? These are companies that are actually making this is the delusion. See, when you fall in the delusion of fake numbers, thanks to central banking, when you create the fire economy, where over 80% of your economy is based on the fire economy, finance, insurance, real estate, the speculative bubbles. You delude yourself into thinking that you got wealth. You delude yourself as a nation thinking that the companies who are all cottage industries, by the way, all built on very fragile supply chains, by the way, none of whom could economically scale up to any sort of level. And the proof of that was the Ukraine war. When American defense contractors were running out of munitions, you couldn't build it up. And when the truth starts coming out that if we went into a conventional war against China, against Russia, we'd last about 8 days. And then we'd have to go nuclear and hope that at least 20% of our nukes somewhat work, our 50-some-odd-year-old nukes. Because everything you're looking at right now, fake valuations on cottage industries. There's no way anybody can tell me that Enduro or OpenAI is worth more than ExxonMobil. You cannot look at me with a straight face and tell me that. You cannot tell me NVIDIA is a more valuable company than ExxonMobil or any one of these real companies that are actually doing real things. Can't tell me that. Cowboy, your take.
Nothing to add, brother. That was brilliant.
Shifting gears here. Stupidity has its consequences, Cowboy, it seems like. So, thanks to the tariffs, my man, what's happening here?
They're pushing the two potential greatest powers in the world into each other's arms.
It's one thing for China and Russia. Now you're pushing the I in BRICS to go work with China. This is from the cradle. This week, India and China have taken a great leap in faith in their mutual efforts to incrementally advance the normalization process in their bilateral relationship. India and China should be getting along great. They don't. It's because of India's fault. India is still hijacked by a lot of City of London interests. India is still controlled, but to a great extent, by City of London interests. But India is also out for its own survival. India is a whole other subject I could speak hours on because it's a country that's not supposed to be a country. Anyway, this may assume the nature of a reapproach when Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi meets Chinese President Xi Jinping on the sidelines of the Shanghai Cooperative Organization Summit in the port city of Tianjin in northeast China on the 31st of August through September. The Sino-Indian approach, or reapproachment, will be a historic event in world politics. It holds the potential to be a key template in the emerging world order in the 21st century. From the Indian perspective, what is unfolding promises to be the finest legacy of Modi in a tumultuous political career as his 75th birthday approaches next month. Wang Yi, Tiger Wang, as we like to call him. No doubt the landmark visit to New Delhi. No doubt the two-day visit to New Delhi this week by the Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi, who is also a member of the Political Bureau of the Communist Party, Central Committee, and Director of the Office of Central Commission of Foreign Affairs. Basically, Wang Yi is basically the Chinese version of Sergei Lavrov. Okay? It will go down as a watershed event. It's a game changer because Wang, arguably one of the world's most seasoned diplomats, he's phenomenal, has turned boundary talks into a mission to harness recent positive momentum and inject a new dynamic into the normalization process. Why is this key? Well, there's 3 members of the SCO, the Shanghai Cooperative Organization. Right? I mean, there's several members, but there's 3 key members that have some intersecting alliances and beefs. You got China, of course, but in the same table, you have Pakistan on one side, you have India on the other. And Western proxies, predominantly of the City of London ilk, are keeping the Pakistanis and the Indians at each other's throats. Because, look, Pakistan and India is a British creation. Okay? It's a British creation. And keeping them off kilt and pitting one against the other while creating stressors and border skirmishes between the Chinese and the Indians have really strained the relationship. This is something Wang Yi understands. So the Chinese are trying to make it ever more lucrative. And India is coming to a value decision. Is it A, going to keep playing the middle, where it does its own thing and it plays the West against the East, where it still answers and does some dirty work for the City of London Corporation? Or is it going to understand that the City of London days are numbered, that the West's days as a financial powerhouse is coming to an end, and throw its full brunt into a new and emerging multipolar world, which is here? It cannot be stopped. That is the question. And how does this occur? Well, we had tariffs. It can be argued that Trump and his tariffs, when it comes to India, has literally cemented or started to cement a greater cohesion between India and China. If that occurs and their economies become intertwined more than what they are currently, then you're going to have a longer lasting political and economic alliance. Wang has signaled that Beijing is eager, as New Delhi, to improve the relationship against the backdrop of an increasingly reckless and belligerent Trump administration. Both sides sense they have a common interest. Inevitably, a China-India working relationship anchored on strategic understanding will do wonders for BRICS. This prospect is already worrying Trump, who has threatened BRICS more than once for allegedly working to dethrone the dollar as the world's reserve currency. Nobody cares about the dollar, man. It's everyone knows days are numbered. It is early to tell, but if the positive trends in a Sino-Indian relations again traction and become a driving force in international politics, it can galvanize the dormant Russia, India, China, the RIC or the RIC process, which Moscow has been promoting since the idea was first muted in the late 1990s by the great Russian visionary statesman, the late Yevgeny Primakov. Indeed, the correlation of forces internationally has shifted over the past 3 decades, more or less, in the direction that Primakov had envisioned with great foresight. Taking a step back, all of this is going to be interesting. Everything that is occurring right now is performative theater. Cowboy, I don't know if you saw the latest post by Trump. It was yesterday, actually. It wasn't the latest post, but it was a post by Trump, I think a day ago, where it's a black and white photo of Trump pointing his finger at Putin, and then right beneath that is a black and white photo of Nixon pointing his finger at Nikita Khrushchev, right? Showing that we're in charge, we're running the tables. And this is all performative theater for the American audience. Just like it was performative theater for having a B-2 bomber and some F-35s or F-22s flying overhead when Putin and Trump were walking together in Alaska to the stage. It's all performative theater. It's great for the American people because we got to keep the whole, the spirits up and the spending going, keep the debt, perpetual war and perpetual debt machine running. The rest of the world don't really give, outside of the West, the rest of the world doesn't really give a rat's ass. The rest of the world sees what's occurring in the West better than the people in the West or the politicians that lead the West even understand or comprehend. The rest of the world even understands what's happening to the West better than even private equity. Private equity has no fucking clue. They only understand markets. They cannot see the forest through the tree. They can't see it. You don't believe me? Pick up Ray Dalio's latest book about how the world changes. Man's clueless. Clueless. Dalio would run rings around anybody when it comes to like investments and markets and whatnot. But understanding the geopolitical world at large and the geostrategic world, the changes that are ahead, he can't break his own conditioning, his own programming. And you'll see the same thing with Buffett and all these other guys. So all this performative theater, folks, at the end of the day means nothing. And what we're seeing and what's going to continue to happen, no matter who the fuck is in office, is the continued degradation of the United States. There's a paradigm that's coming. There's a date with destiny that is ahead. You can run from it. You could ignore it. You could pretend it doesn't exist. You can even convince yourself that we're going to somehow escape it. That paradigm altering event is coming. I believe wholeheartedly by 2030, I think there's a lot of culminating facts and data that are starting to show that date. That date is coming. What the world, the Western world, and here the United States is going to look like on the other end of it is anybody's guess. I, for one, am hoping for the best. I, for one, am hoping for favorable economic and political conditions. But my mentor in 2003 has always taught me you could hope in one hand and shit in the other and find out which piles up faster. Hope is never a strategy. I will hope for the best, but I always like to prepare for the worst. Cowboy.
Yeah, I started Dalio's book, and he kind of painted what looked like a decent picture for the rise and fall of empire. And he painted a picture of the U.S. empire falling. So, I mean, he can't be all wrong.
But a lot of it, that's kindergarten level, man.
Oh yeah, but I think most people are in preschool level. You know what I mean?
Yeah, true.
And it starts with education, and this goes back to India and it goes back to China. Now, the U.S. has been behind on education for a long time. And according to Dalio's kindergarten level, the beginning of the rise of empire starts with education, right? It starts with the populace being educated in applied sciences and other things as well. So look at the Chinese students, right? They kick everybody's ass. Yeah. Indian students. How many people come to this country from India to be like doctors, surgeons, engineers? Yeah, these are all, and Iran, for that matter, sends out a ton of engineers. Russia, so we are a country that whose educational standards are well behind. So even if you're going by Dalio, who obviously is not perfect, even if you go by his measure, the rise of the next empire is very clear, and it ain't happening here in the U.S. Right. Now, maybe we can turn it around or pull out of it, whatever. I think maybe in 20 years, 10 at the least, we might be able to, not be in such bad shape. Right. But China and India not only have high levels of education and spit out scientists and engineers and everything else, they also have a huge population. And India has been held back from manufacturing. So when China decided to industrialize, the unfortunate leadership of India, and I mean leadership as in the influence from the West, I'm guessing, stopped them from industrializing. They convinced the government over there many years ago that no, if you industrialize and you build factories, the people can no longer hand make cloth, and all those hand, cloth makers are going to lose their jobs.
Yeah.
And they scared them into not industrializing. And now I think that in the last 20 years, and especially the last 10, the City of London Corp, Davos, and all those groups have been basically staked out and laid bare for what they really are. And I think India's figuring that out. And I'm rooting for India. And it's a large and diverse place. It's not just, I mean, it's one country technically, but a lot of people, including myself, don't really understand India that well. But I'll tell you what, I'm rooting for them. Ultimately, from what I've seen, they're a conservative culture. And guess what? So's China.
Yep.
I mean, yeah, they're communists. They're communists. Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay. I don't even have any. Anybody that says that at this point, I just don't even have time to talk to them.
Right.
But yeah, watch out. It's coming. That's what I got.
Very well said. And folks, we're at the end of the show. Tomorrow we have Ben Kelleran on Kelleran's Corner. So keep it locked and loaded right here. roguenews.com. With that being said, take it away, Cowboy.